Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. I'm your host, Katie Halper. You probably know that. We're going to have a great show today. We're going to be talking to some folks, some journalists based in Bolivia, Ollie Vargas and Camila Escalante, who will be joining the show. Some folks. Okay, and they'll be correcting basically all the lies that you've heard about Bolivia, and it's pretty amazing how the media and the government have gotten everything wrong again and again. What else can I tell you about the show? That'll be great. Then we're going to be talking to Esperanza Fonseca, who's a great organizer and member of the anti-imperialist feminist organization AF3IRM, and also part of the magazine TwinkRev, the LGBTQ Marxist magazine, TwinkRev. And before we do that, just going to tell you that if you're watching, you were wrong if you did the over-under and you thought I'd be more than 15 minutes late. So hope you didn't bet too much of the money on that. And just wanted you to also know that this show is here for you. And at some point in the show, there will be a part 2. And if you're watching this live, you're in such luck because you get to see the whole show. But if you're watching this later or listening to this later, you'll get a good chunk of it for free. But if you're not watching it live, you're going to have to get everything. You're going to have to go to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. And I feel good about that. I feel okay about that because it's not like we're not giving you a full show. And some of the people you'll be hearing from shortly, my Thursday night co-host, Leslie Lee, for instance, very strong Patreon game. There's no shame in that game. And he's got great politics, so I stand by that. And anything else I need to say at the top of the show? See how organized I am? No, we're good? All right, so I'm going to bring on my co-hostess with the mostest, Leslie Lee. Hello, Leslie.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. I'm going to turn up the mic a little bit more. Actually, oh, you know what, guys? Wait a second. Was my correct mic not in play? Let me see.
No, your mic's fine.
Mic is good? Okay. In my head. Hold on one second. I may need to. 1 second. Hello? No, you're good. Actually, it's me. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You're fine.
All right. Awesome. Is this the max volume that my mic can go? When I say mic, Nick, I mean like the max that I can set it to. So for me, for my ears, I'm loud and clear. I know. Yeah. Katie is fine. Oh no, I'm not opening up that can of worms where everyone gives their feedback about how everyone sounds. I just meant my ears are a little, I'm getting older, less wise, and wanted to know if I could make it so I could hear Leslie louder. But it's again, it's not Leslie. It's definitely me. Okay, let me just finish doing this. This is like obviously should be the. Can you put the Patreon in there, Nick? My link. Thanks. All right, guys. This is really we put the Patreon at the beginning. That's where you get the uncut, really fun, behind the scenes stuff. But Leslie, tell me what's going on with you in your world. How's it going?
Oh, everything's going okay. Just very excited for the return of SVU this evening.
This evening?
Yes.
Oh, man. I wish we could.
I know. It would be nice.
We can't stream it, though.
We can't stream it. Well, not legally. You
can't. Oh, you know what we could do? What time is it on?
It comes on at 8. It does come on at 8.
Can we tape it?
Can we tape it?
Yeah, like in the olden days.
Tape it?
Yeah,
I don't know if you
it?
can tape it. I don't know if there's a VHS.
Okay.
Or anything like that.
Yeah, damn it. You know what we could do? We should move this to Patreon. We could watch it on. Could we? I mean, we couldn't do that in a fictional world, though, Leslie. Could we maybe in a fictional world not get demonetized on Patreon?
Yeah. Patreon, you could do whatever you want. It's the Wild West.
Wow. Well, all right. Huh. Interesting. I this is good audio for me, by the way. I'm fine. I'm hearing it very well. That's an interesting thing to consider. What do you like about SVU, guys? By when I say guys, I mean you, Leslie.
Well, SVU. I mean, it's just Law and Order in general. I've always been a big fan of the procedural, even though all cops are bastards. But on TV, that's the only place you get a couple of decent cops. And tonight is a big reunion because finally Elliot Stabler is coming back. Christopher Maloney's Elliot Stabler, who was on I think the first 12 seasons of SVU, is coming back and reuniting with Mariska Hargitay's Olivia Benson, who's been holding down the fort on SVU for a decade. But Maloney's getting his own show. He's just doing it's called what is it? I think Law and Order Organized Crime. So he's going to be like taking on the mafia and stuff.
That's good. We need more of that.
Yes. A little bit more fun than SVU, they've been ripping cases from the headlines for God knows how long. They're doing like Gamergate episodes. They're doing like episodes about stuff that people who are mad about on Twitter. So they're trying to freshen it up with the organized crime thing. Just some old mafiosos. Just some old school stuff instead of like SVU's about cancel culture and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, Ice-T is on that, and Ice-T's father-in-law is a kind of a skeptic about COVID, and he's sick now, so that should be a warning to everyone. Did you see this?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I like the way Ice-T always would like everyone understood it. Do you know what I mean? It was like almost like exposition.
There's probably a good supercut of Ice-T.
Yeah.
Explaining stuff. That's not particular to Ice-T. That's just how Law and Order works, because every episode. Thank you, Julie. I am feeling better now. But because Law and Order in general has so much exposition. It's a great show because you don't even have to look at the screen to watch it and follow along. But there's so much exposition that everybody repeats everything and explains every concept. And since they pull so much stuff from like bath salts, anything that's in the news they pull in, and they have to explain to their audience, which does skew a bit older, what all this stuff is. They have to explain like what a OnlyFans is.
I just didn't know what that was until a couple months ago.
Yeah. Well, hey, SVU only a little bit behind you, but if you were catching up with SVU, you might have learned about it from them because they did do an OnlyFans episode. Wow. And that's when you pay more to access someone's something? Oh, I have no idea what OnlyFans is. I have no clue.
I know it's something related to that.
No clue what OnlyFans is.
Hold on. I want to give you guys a cautionary tale. Can you guys see that? Oh my God, my DMs are open. Sorry. Crap. Can you guys see this?
Oh, wow.
So that's his father-in-law.
He's put his father-in-law on blast.
No. Look, he cares about the guy. He doesn't want him. I hope he's okay. Let's see. My father-in-law, Coco's dad, was a serious no-masker. COVID hit him, pneumonia in both lungs, 40 days in ICU, close to death. Now he's on oxygen indefinitely. Oh, he's a believer now. COVID is not a game.
Damn. Ice-T put his father-in-law
Ice-T, I know. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, I hope so too. I guess 40 days.
It's like the Bible. Something happened there for 40 days, right?
Yeah.
Final level. That's his Twitter handle.
Wandering in the desert, sitting on the ICU.
And then we got this.
Yep. I think that's a fan poster.
Little son. It's really good. Yeah. So we have that to look forward to. Oh, man.
Yeah, Maloney is coming back. I mean, I am technically only co-hosting the show, so I can have this up in another window. That sounds like a very interesting stuff. You're going to be talking about Bolivian stuff, but
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Wow, Ice-T has
his Twitter game is tight. His Twitter game is tight.
Oh my God. Oh wait, I'm gonna get demonetized if I play too much of that. Wow, he's selling out tours. Wait, is he on them, or is he just supporting them?
The Art of Comedy. It was a live stream.
Was he part of it? I don't see him. So he's
I think he just might be. He might
supporting.
Supporting a friend.
Look at him. Look how supportive he is. Look at this. He's very humble. He's bragging about Peter Frampton following him. I'm done. Rock legend achievement unlocked. He's supporting his good friend Amy Lee and Evan.
From Evanescence. Evanescence. Wow.
The Bitter Truth. It's out now. You can purchase it.
Did not know that he was friends with Amy Lee from Evanescence. I didn't know Evanescence was still putting stuff out there. Hey, it's all coming back. SVU's coming back. Biden's back. Evanescence is back.
You can want an ice cold fact. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
It's all back, baby.
And then we got an ice cold fact from Ice-T. Jealousy is real on social media. Your own friends will scroll past your progress.
Oh, he's got a lot of good stuff like that. He always has really good ones. He always has really good ones.
Like good pieces of advice?
Yes.
Yeah. It takes a former thief to spot a thief. Final level with the help of Bumpy Knuckles.
Oh, the mediator. He has like a TV show where he mediates stuff.
Oh, wow, that's good.
That's wild. That's wild.
Oh, look at this. Body count, the hate is real. Watch here, Metal Rock Punk News. Shout out for Make Body Count this insane video. Well done, respect. Is that him in the video?
I don't know.
I think it is with the goatee.
It might be. I don't know enough about Body Count. I think so. Yeah, they do tag him. I guess it is his band. I forget if it was ever his band or like he would be in it sometimes.
Here's another one. Ice cold fact. When you're on your grind night and day, nobody wants to be involved. When you secure that substantial bag and people hear about it, now everyone wants in. Never fails.
Ice cold fact.
ICF.
Jonathan Cadman. Yes, I have seen Iron Sheik's Twitter feed, and yes, it is quite interesting. Usually, Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik is a professional wrestler.
Oh, okay. Of course, I know that. Oh, look at this little Ice Cube and Ice Tea. Wow. So yeah, look at him supporting Ice Cube. This is great.
So yeah, Body Count is Ice-T's band because I never listened to him, but I just remember the controversy, and and MTV didn't know whether Ice-T was in the band or not. So the reporting on it was always weird. It's like a band associated with Ice-T. I just remember it from the news stories like 20 years ago about the song "Cop Killer."
Oh, that must have done well.
Yeah, it was. Oh, it was huge controversy, Kay, like huge.
I don't remember it.
Huge controversy, and now he plays a cop on TV for the past 20
That's really funny. It's the range. He wanted to have range. Yeah. And who is Coco?
That's his wife.
I know. She's
she's Ice-T's wife.
Model, fitness chick, everybody's best. Actually, Leslie, she's everybody's best friend.
Yeah.
Shoe freak that loves to clean.
This is not me minimizing Coco's role or anything, but that was how she stepped on the scene. It's like,
got it.
Oh, Ice-T's married to this woman. Oh, she's kind of cool too, and very interesting life, very beautiful.
Yeah.
A very interesting relationship they have.
Their baby is named Chanel. She looks a lot like Ice. She does. You see it? Like a really strong resemblance. She's very cute.
Yeah.
I told Chanel I got to take baby out of her name on page Baby Chanel World, and she said, "No, you don't, Mommy, because will always be your baby."
Oh.
All right. Interesting. All right. Coco looks like her dad. Okay. Coco also does weights in a very non-supportive outfit. This is not what you want to be wearing if you are exercising, let me tell you.
This is Coco's brand. Always been her brand.
Oh my God, wait, she's doing Trump. Can you hear that? Did I have the volume up? Or no? Do I have the volume up or no?
No.
Oh my God, wait, guys. Sorry.
David Laher saying, but the Mafia blew up Body Count's tour bus in Italy after Ice-T made a stink over them selling pirate merch in the lot out front.
I mean,
I think it's kind of messed up that you go to Italy and they're selling.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to side with the Mafia. I'm kind of siding with the Mafia here.
No, I'm siding with Ice-T. I mean, you don't expect to go to Italy
You're an ice no
and
nationalist.
have to deal with bootlegs. You don't expect to go to Italy and deal with bootleg T-shirts. I mean, come on.
How come? You're saying that like bootlegs are
like
American?
for like a world tour, like a iced tea world tour. It's the last thing you're on your mind if you're iced tea, a kind of not the top level artist. Obviously, if you're the Rolling Stones, you expect it. But if you're iced tea, you might show up and feel some kind of way because it's like your bank account is not that big, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I get it.
Like you're bootlegging me. I'm over here in Italy. I'm not even. They might not even have made money on the tour.
Right. What are you saying about Italians, Leslie?
I'm just saying. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying about the
I'm trying to start
the
my
bootlegger.
own yeah. Huge controversy. I said you never know what being nervous is like until you've heard the president speak your name in anger. Who was the president then? Bush? Like the first Bush? What year is this?
Oh yeah, I think it might have been Bush. It was Bush or Clinton. One of the others. One of the others. It was Bush or Clinton.
Well, we have someone who lives in Italy, so that's good. We'll have that on retainer.
No, I'm sure some people are like, yeah, I know there's bootleg stuff in everywhere. I just when you don't expect there to be bootlegs for like mid-level tours, generally speaking. It's usually like just like big concerts. Like you just don't expect like a smaller band that's doing an international tour
Right.
that might not even be making that much money to get like bootlegged.
Well, here's Coco. Ready? I hope you can hear this. Let me know if you can, because this is interesting. She's a bit derivative. Ready? Watch.
It may get bigger, it may get a little bigger, it may not get bigger at all. We'll see what happens. But regardless of what happens, we're totally prepared. It may get bigger, it may get a little bigger, it may not get bigger at all. We'll see what happens. But regardless of what happens, we're totally prepared.
So that's
it may
Coco.
get bigger,
She's not,
it may get a little
she was
bigger.
doing the Sarah, what's her name thing, but I guess she's not, because what she's doing is
more or less the same thing. It's kind of like, yeah, it's just like, well, this is what TikTok is for, but she's not like trying to take credit for it. Like,
right, she's not trying
Sarah,
to, right, yeah.
Like that's just what TikTok is for. You just,
and she's also not making a political statement, right? Oops.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, cool. Oh, St. Pat. Oh, this is cute.
He always has good dogs, I think. Ice Cube always keeps a lot of good dogs around.
Yeah. Well,
not like that Biden guy.
Oh my God.
Can't handle his dogs.
You know what?
I remember people got mad at me when I said that he doesn't actually take care of those dogs. People still don't believe me, and it's obviously true. He doesn't take care of those dogs. Those aren't his dogs. Those are show dogs, stunt dogs. At least one.
What are they called again?
I don't know.
Puppy. What are they called? Biden's dog account. What is it's called? Like Pawful Office or something?
Oh, I don't know that. I couldn't figure out what the thing was with the
Biden
with the Twitter accounts, because I know there's some official. There's some I don't know. There's official. I thought there was 2 unofficial ones.
Hold on.
Insider has a article. Biden's dogs must resign.
Yeah, hold on. This is good. Is this the one where they make all these stupid puns? Hold on. Yeah.
Biden's dogs must resign.
Yeah, why is that?
I mean, they can't stop Biden people.
I'm glad someone had the courage to say it. Let's see. All right, hold on.
I mean, they are cop dogs. I mean.
All right, here, ready? Fan account dedicated to the first dogs of America. Wait, that can't be the official one. Can someone put in the comments what the official first dogs account is?
See, I didn't think there was an official one. I thought there were 2 unofficial ones, and they were like trying to fight over who could be the number one fake one.
Oh, interesting. Well, one of them has a really strong pun game. I think, hold on. Has anyone put it in the comments yet? Let's see. Anyone? He couldn't remember the number. Biden fell in the shower. His dog was mad. Biting people. I can't believe no one has found this, guys. Don't you guys follow this account?
I don't
really
know if
good.
there's an official. Is there
Hold
official?
on. Biden's Twitter dog. Hold on. Okay, Joe Biden's dog have
it the
there's a Twitter account for them, and it's hilarious. And it is the Oval Poffus. I knew it. This is legit. This is the real one. Ready? Doesn't have many
I don't
followers, I
know.
would think. Here, hold on.
Katie, I don't know. I don't know if this is official.
All right. Oh, you know what? Does not have a blue check.
It's not official. Katie, you have been duped by a unofficial dog account.
You know what? I thought it was real. It says in this article Nar City. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
It says there is a Twitter account for Joe Biden's dogs, and it's hilarious. Their first statement details their future policy ideas. Am I wrong? You think I've been set up?
Yeah, I think you've been had. You've been had, Katie. I'm sorry. You've been
Wait
had.
a second. But oh man, you're right. It would have had a blue check.
Yeah, it would definitely have a blue check if it was official. No, there's two unofficial ones, and they're fighting over who gets to be good, who gets to be number one.
Oh, which is the other one? We won't stand idly by while our impeccable reputation is under paw attack.
There's the first dogs. The first dogs is the other one. Is another one.
Oh, that one didn't have me fooled. This one did though.
Oh, where's my dog? Taco, come here.
A small tip for the humans walking with my brother.
Taco. Let's pull up Taco.
Oh, my paw. Someone's had to destroy our reputation. They really go long. I can't believe it. I thought that they were legit.
Can't stop with the... No, they're both... There's two unofficial accounts.
Well, then Biden needs to make a real one.
Why? Those aren't his dogs. Those aren't his dogs. I'm sorry. He doesn't take care of dogs. I'm sure they're pretty okay
you see
dogs.
That's a cute dog. Look at that cute dog.
And he can kind of get along with them, but...
Yeah, they trip him. Anyway, all right. Well...
Yeah.
You know what? I learned a lot. I learned that isn't real. But they certainly look like they're making a lot of money off of him.
Oh, somebody had to.
Yeah.
All right, we got my dog here.
Where's I'm just checking in on the there may have been a let me just make sure the time thing. 1 second.
We got my dog here now, Taco.
Okay, have to be off. All right. Yeah, just waiting for the guest. I emailed them. Let me just, guys, again, this is the behind the scenes stuff that everyone loves. I'm going to assume everyone loves, right, Leslie?
Yes. Taco is a mix of, we don't know because he is adopted, was a rescue. We don't know. We speculate Norwegian elk hound with, what do we say? Maybe Akita. I think we speculate Norwegian elk hound with Akita.
Oh, we already got some. Hope Katie Helps is aware that your upcoming guest and classless society, Esperanza Fonseca, is promoting the ouster of a duly elected leader of a third world country. She is Western chauvinist promoting imperialism. Not my call how to run your show, but just so you know that Maoist is sus. Uh-oh. She did to her way worse than Ice-T did to his father-in-law. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to figure out where our guests are.
Oh, someone
I did
asked
send
me
out that email, right?
Yeah, I got an email.
All right, they're in that too.
All right, somebody sent put a message in the chat if I watched the Netflix documentary Crack. No, I haven't even heard of it because I mean it's something I would watch. I watch a lot of true crime. I don't know why it never popped up on my list though. I might check it out. I don't know, the Netflix true crime documentaries, they're really like hit or miss. Some are pretty decent, but some can be really like not that interesting. Not that interesting. I'll check out the Crack documentary sometimes. The best true crime stuff though, you gotta go to Discovery Plus.
Oh, what's
they got
that?
a lot. It's like it's just another app, another streaming app. But the Chameleon Killer. The
What's
Chameleon Killer is the best true crime documentary that there is that's on the Discovery Plus app. And it's just about this completely bizarre true crime story that went on for decades, different jurisdictions, all sorts of, the cops running around didn't know because the killer kept changing his identity, and so he would change his MO a lot too, so the cops couldn't track him. Very interesting stuff.
Wow. Well, I'm not okay. We're gonna give our spoiler alert. We're gonna give him a few minutes to sort it out, but we have made contact, right, Leslie? We have made contact with our guests. We see them.
All right, great.
You don't see them, but we do, and you will see them shortly. Have you ever been to Bolivia, Leslie?
No, I have not.
Well, would you ever like to talk to people who have been to Bolivia?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. These journalists. We'll keep talking not about Bolivia because you know what's going to happen. It's like we're going to have to time it perfectly, and there may not be ready for a few more seconds, and then my whole very professional, seamless vibe that I've cultivated over the years will be destroyed. So when they give us a thumbs up, we can talk to them. But okay, both of them give the thumbs up. Okay, ready. So very excited to be talking to two journalists, Ollie Vargas and Camila Escalante, who are joining us live from Bolivia. Hello. Okay. 1 second. Look at that. The media, the mainstream media is trying to cut out. What is that? What's happening? That's never happened before. Hold on.
Yeah.
Stand by. That's suspicious. Let me take out some. Should I shut down some programs? They froze on their end, guys. Okay, confirmation.
Okay.
They have frozen on their end. Okay, but maybe I should anyway. CIA got them? No, don't even joke about that. In the meantime, I could show you. They are really great. They have great Twitter feeds. Hold on 1 second. They're part of this really cool thing. Let's see. You guys know what happened in Bolivia? I mean, we're going to get a rundown from them, but basically, spoiler alert, is that there was an illegal coup, and then they launched by literal crypto fascists, and then they had democratic elections, and while the crypto fascists were in power, the U.S. didn't have anything to say about it. But when the right wingers were replaced by democratically elected leaders, all of a sudden, the State Department had a lot to say about it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, let's see if this works. Ready? Hello, yay. Welcome. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hey.
Sorry about the little internet problem. We're good now.
Oh, good. Don't worry about it. Awesome. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having us again, Katie.
Of course.
I think it's my third time.
Wow. Yeah, we're gonna have to put Camila on alone so she's caught up. Yeah. We'll do a third though. This is Leslie Lee. I don't remember if you guys co-hosted together. I mean,
No,
we're on
I
the show
think
together.
so.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
So welcome, and just I guess tell us what. Thank you for all the work that you do, first of all, and can you tell us what is happening in Bolivia? And on a scale from 1 to 10, how similar is the reality presented by the Washington Post to the reality happening on the ground in Bolivia?
Yeah, I think there's been a number of developments over the past few weeks, consisting around sort of some of the senior figures of the last government, which came in through a military coup. That many of those people now being arrested. Some of those people are being arrested. And so there's been a narrative that's taken hold in media, particularly in the United States, outlets like the Washington Post, talking about this is persecution, that these people, there were legitimate officials and now they're being persecuted, they're being thrown in jail, and this is a deterioration of democratic norms and creeping authoritarianism, that sort of thing. The sort of the similar phrases words, vocabulary used, again, in a number of other cases, in countries that are considered official enemies of the United States. But I think what hasn't been, platformed, and what we try to show the world is the other side of the stories, the other voices that, tend to be ignored in the mainstream media, and that is the voices of the people who were victims of the officials, the former officials who've now been arrested. Because these people aren't being arrested for their political ideology or for their views, for thought crimes. They're being arrested for a very concrete set of charges relating to acts that they carried out in government, which include massacres of innocent protesters, which includes very serious corruption, COVID-related corruption, includes things like taking out an illegitimate IMF loan in an illegal manner by in legal terms. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to present the voices, and I think in a couple of days we're going to have actually a video report, a mini documentary where we talk to some of those victims in the city of Cochabamba, people who, ordinary people who were jailed, thrown away, had the key thrown away, and no one has thought to ask them what they think about what's going on, whether they think this is political persecution compared to what they lived through, the ways that they were persecuted. So it's an interesting moment, it's an interesting moment. We're going to see a lot more of the kind of talk of, this is vengeance, this is authoritarianism. Democracy is dying in Latin America because of these sorts of people, vengeful people who just want to look up their opponents. We just want to try and show the other side.
Yeah. And we can actually look, they just, a report was released by the State Department, which is interesting because, as you tweeted, or as Kasechon News tweeted, you are co-founder of that, Camila, and Ollie, you are also a co-founder, or you're just, you're both co-founders?
We are co-founders.
All right, great. Anyone else? Just the two of you?
Yeah. At the moment,
all right,
just two of us.
I guess
we're sort of a unit within a radio station, a Bolivian radio station, called Radio Coco, and this is. So we're in this little office is ours, and the rest of the building is of the radio. Awesome. It's just us in this, but part of something larger.
So this is. I'm just going to show the tweet. Let's see. Here we go. So can you guys see this? And this is the U.S. State Department has released its 2020 report on human rights practices for Bolivia. Its own report cites human rights abuses, including extrajudicial killings by the Jeanine Añez regime, as well as heavy reliance on torture. Has Secretary Blinken read his own report? So, Camila, do you want to walk us through this or add anything to what Ollie just said? Okay.
Let me open it because on the screen we're looking at, it's very
small. Right here. I can also,
I mean, this comes in the context of Secretary of State Antony Blinken posting an official sort of communique condemning the Bolivian government, the current Bolivian government, for carrying out so-called political persecution against the former authorities, Jeanine Añez, as I said earlier, who was installed through a military coup, who carried out massacres, human rights violations. He said that bringing justice against those people is persecution. He said the U.S. state, is concerned about how democracy is being eroded in Bolivia. Yeah, that's the tweet.
We are deeply concerned by growing signs of anti-democratic behavior and politicization of the legal system in Bolivia. The Bolivian government should release detained former officials pending an independent and transparent inquiry into human rights and due process concerns.
Yeah, so comparing that to what we're about to hear, I think, from Camila.
Yeah, so down the thread, we highlight that one exactly. In their very third paragraph, they say that these significant human rights issues do in fact exist, and where this, this in this beginning section, it does say that Luis Arce was democratically elected in the elections that were held on October 18th. But it doesn't actually mention that, Luis Arce was in government for a month and a half for the entire year, and that the year was, characterized by a military coup regime led by Jeanine Añez, who stole power, interrupting a 13-year democratically elected government headed by Evo Morales. It doesn't say that. And so it's kind of bizarre, like I mentioned to you earlier. It's like, it kind of seems like they're unaware of the timeline of which things took place in Bolivia. And it kind of seems like the person or the people who compiled this report were unaware of some of the, details and don't have a lot of background information on Bolivia. But yeah, it says, obviously torture is the first thing that they list there. And so in the first section, respect for integrity of the person, including freedom from arbitrary deprivation of life and other unlawful or politically motivated killings, it says that there were no reports of the government or its agents committed arbitrarily or unlawful killings during the year. But if you actually read the body of this first section, it actually details some of the things that they learned from the reports that were conducted here on the ground by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the Office of the High Commissioner of the United Nations, and of course other organizations. Most importantly, the Ombudsman's office here in Bolivia, specifically the National Ombudsman's office, as well as the local ones, who detailed all the different human rights violations. And those, of course, were, for the most part, glazed over in this report. It does mention Nelson Cox, who is the Defensoria, the Ombudsman of the Department of Cochabamba, where we are now, and does cite some of the reporting he did, but he is the ombudsman. It just names him as a representative, as if it doesn't, have any, as if this isn't some important official here in Bolivia. So he detailed the torture experienced by 9 people who were arrested here in this region of the country, this rural area of Cochabamba. And so it does, obviously in that first section, cites the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, who characterized what took place as extrajudicial killings. But of course that is in contradiction with the very first line of the section, which says no reports that such arbitrary or unlawful killings were committed. So of course it's already a little bit of a multiple personality disorder type report. So then, down a little further down on torture is where it begins to get more explicit. But not only is it explicit.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm on the right one. This is this in the March? Is this the screenshots that start with 2020 country reports on human rights practices?
It says C. It's still the first section, but then
torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading.
Got it. Okay. Yep. We're there. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So it says that there were no reports that the government officials employed, torture, coercion, physical and emotional violence. But then it cites multiple examples in the following paragraphs of where it was employed. Like I said before, in this first paragraph, it talks about Nelson Cox, the ombudsman of the Department of Cochabamba, who reported on the blows to lower extremities, to backs, to ribs of people who were detained by police here in Cochabamba. In the second paragraph, it talks about NGOs reporting that police relied heavily on torture. And then it says that the most common forms of torture for detainees included rape, gang rape by guards, sensory deprivation, use of improvised tear gas chambers and tasers, asphyxiation, verbal abuse, and threats to violence. That's exactly what's in the tweet there, so you can find that.
And this is, just to clarify, this is what was alleged about the coup government.
That's right.
Right. This is the coup.
Something interesting I think Camila said at the beginning was that the report was about last year as a whole. And they cite that the current government at the end of last year was the elected government of the left of Luis Arce. But of course, Luis Arce took power in November of 2020. The vast majority of that year is, of course, the Añez regime. So that's the, they detailed the torture, the human rights violations that took place under the Añez government.
Right.
Yet when the new democratically elected government tries to bring justice for these clearly stated crimes, I think, that's authoritarian, you're cracking down on the opposition. I think Reuters, used terms like, this is the opposition crackdown, the crackdown on critics, blah, blah. Justice is not persecution, where there has been clear crimes committed. There should be justice, and I think that's democratic as well.
Right.
Yeah, I also think it's a little bizarre, how the report was written, because we're talking about a year in which there were two different governments, following a year where there was a whole different government. So there's three potential governments that this report could be written about. And in the first section, it uses the word interim. And then later on, in another section, it uses the word transitional government. But in other sections, it doesn't refer whatsoever to who the government was, whether it was the government of Luis Arce, whether they're referring to the previous government in 2019 up until November of Evo Morales, or whether it's this interim or transitional government. So, they're kind of attributing these crimes to no one when they do cite the human rights abuses that were written up by these various human rights organizations and NGOs. It's not attributed to the government in power in any way. That's obviously very bizarre and wouldn't be the case if this was a report being written about President Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. So further down, it talks about arbitrary arrest or detention. And it says, the government didn't always respect the law. It's kind of just lukewarm on it. But as Ollie was saying, the report we're working on, which we hope to release in the coming days, is interviewing those political prisoners of the coup regime who were persecuted politically and jailed based on completely false accusations. And because they are not celebrities, because they're not government officials or important leaders of the movement towards socialism, there wasn't any international outcry. We didn't have Cristina Fernandez and Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Fernandez Kirchner and in Argentina calling for their release. We don't have anyone offering them asylum because they are just working class people in the Zona Sur of Cochabamba. So we spoke to them, heard their stories, and they themselves expressed, not only did they experience torture, but they and their families were extorted. They were extorted for money. And these are people who literally have to go out to work every single day to make the bare amount of money to survive on a regular day. Then they were in prison. This is the men, the males of the households, of course. And we're talking about, working class people who largely, because of where they live and, their family setup, their income comes from largely the father who goes out to work. And if this person is jailed, they have absolutely few means to make money. So when they were inside the jails and being tortured by the police and the guards and, possibly other state officials, they were being told that Evo Morales was giving them money for their defense. And they told me they have never in their lives had a conversation with Evo Morales. Evo doesn't know who I am. How would I have a conversation with him? And they said, Evo is funding you guys, so give us the money that Evo is sending you. And this is coinciding with torture, and they're going to the families and saying the same things. They're extorting the families for unreasonable amount of monies for the wife and kids to be able to go visit them. Of course, during COVID, when there's a lockdown, and there are already just unreasonable restrictions to people going outside, and people from their neighborhood where they live are already being criminalized and having, confrontations with the police. And so this is, these sorts of stories are not included in this report. And when they, lengthen this report in a few months, it also will not be, included. It talks about denial of a fair public trial procedures. Obviously, there was no due process in any of these cases, and these people have remaining charges. It's very difficult because 1 month after Luis Arce was sworn into office, they were released, but they were given house arrest, so they were not able to go back to work and make money. They weren't able to step outside. and they continue to have those charges. And so it's very difficult for them to live regular lives, not to mention the economic toll, the toll on the lives of family members. And this is, of course, I'm talking about the Zona Sur of Cochabamba, but we've heard from the press conferences of the Victims Association of the massacres of Sencata and Sacaba. They've said the same things, where in some of these cases, we have people who, their fathers, their brothers, their husbands were killed. There are other cases where people were shot and injured and didn't die, but they're obviously not able to work when most people's work requires them to be able to at least lift a box or be able to walk. So those people's lives are completely destroyed. We've some of our colleagues here that work in Spanish and Quechua have interviewed people, and some of the jobs that they've had to do now that they have a gunshot wound to their chest or arm is things that make absolutely no money at all, less than $3 a day, which is not enough even in Bolivia, doing things like selling candy. And then also, going back to political prisoners, it was not just in Carcara or the 2 massacres where people were rounded up by the dozens or hundreds, but in other areas of the country as well. And we're not hearing a lot about those. We won't be getting any international coverage because those people, of course, didn't die, but their lives were destroyed.
Right. So they're basically, they're trying to make it look like there's this rogue vigilante justice, when actually what they're doing is that they are subjecting people to the law, like people who are oversaw massacres.
Yeah, and it's certain. They, especially in the mainstream media, they say the current mass government is carrying out a campaign of revenge against the last government. But the issue of justice is not about revenge. The reason that you implement justice, punishments, is so that something doesn't happen again. So if there's impunity for these violations that Camila's been outlining, then what's to stop it happening next year? However, if there is some form of justice, if, carrying out a coup, stealing large amounts of money through corruption schemes, carrying out serious human rights violations, if those things are seen to have a punishment, then you reduce the chances of those things happening again. So that's why, the basic idea of justice, of punishment as a form of justice, and it's what people are calling for. And, all of these big institutions, would be the Washington Post, or the Catholic Church in Bolivia, the call for the release of Jeanine Añez, who carried out these crimes. Well, when did they ever call for the release of the hundreds and hundreds of people that were jailed and persecuted for political reasons last year? No one ever spoke for those people. And I think Camila's right in that even among the people who were persecuted in Bolivia last year, there's a sort of inequality and an injustice. I think senior figures of Evo Morales' government, for example, who were persecuted, and they suffered greatly. But, once the mass government returns, then, maybe they can get a job in government, maybe. They could, be seen as a hero who sacrificed a great deal by, throughout the country. But what about the hundreds of just ordinary people who came out to protest and were injured, were jailed? No one hears their voices. No one thinks about them. They won't get, a cushy job at the end of it. They're essentially forgotten about. So I think that's what we're trying to do, especially with this video report that Camila's especially has been working on, is to try and show the human side of the statistics of what happened in Bolivia. In Bolivia, there was a coup carried out by the military and right-wing forces within the country with the support of the United States. And as a consequence of that coup, there was a very serious campaign of political persecution. There were massacres carried out, torture on a mass scale. Hundreds of people's lives were destroyed. And I think the world should know about this. And it's not the place of the US government to say that these crimes should be forgotten about, should stay in impunity.
Right. And so just so everyone knows, this is a coup government that was then defeated legally during the elections. And this woman, Añez, who is now in jail, was, you may remember her, she had a huge Bible that she was holding. And very famous for that image. She had a lot of racist things to say about indigenous people in Bolivia. And, you know, this was a very, I don't think the State Department condemned this when this happened with Patricia Arce. I'm going to just show this video, but you guys want to set this up? What happened to her when, right before, right after the coup?
It was before the coup.
Right before, yeah.
Because before the coup, there are a number of right-wing protests in the big cities of Bolivia, demanding, you know, the resignation of Evo Morales, and it was presented again in outlets like the New York Times or the Washington Post as, you know, citizens' uprisings. But actually, there were, you know, really violent protests by middle and upper class sections of the big cities, and at one of these protests, they attacked this woman, Patricia Arce, who's a local mayor for the MAS, an elected official. They dragged her out of her offices, kidnapped her, tortured her, told her that they were walking her to her death. And till now, there's still no justice for that.
Yeah,
and
so
she's one of the people now who's you know, trying to explain that arresting Añez is not about political persecution. It's about justice for the numerous crimes happen, and this was just one of them.
And I don't remember the U.S. government or any human rights. I don't remember like the Washington Post or New York Times focusing on this issue. That was this attack.
¿Qué le han hecho? Me han cortado el cabello. Mi único error ha sido trabajar por mi ¿Qué me demuestra? Lo juro por mi madre. Lo juro por mi madre. No estaba en el hospital ese día. Y te lo he dicho a vos.
Y aquí nosotros no matamos a nadie.
¿Qué más le han hecho, alcaldesa? ¿Qué más le han hecho?
No matamos a nadie.
Alcaldesa, ¿qué le han hecho?
Está muerto.
¿Qué le han hecho? ¿Qué le han hecho? Coméntenos qué le han hecho.
Me han pegado, han ido a quemar la alcaldía, los cabellos me han cortado.
Y tú les has dado todo lo que tengas. Uno de los dos pegado para que no mates.
Que no digas, debería caminar. ¡Asesina de mierda!
So yeah, that's just an example of the type of behavior that happened that did not get very condemned by the same media and government officials in the United States who are upset about the fact that the woman who came to power, who represented this side of the political spectrum, right? She came to power. There were massacres, and now that she's being punished for them, now the U.S. is worried about the disintegration of democracy.
Yeah, and in this report, the State Department report that was released on March 30th, they also just pass up on the opportunity to describe the situation and exactly what it is, politically. And they say at the very end, they mentioned that Patricia Arce, a MAS-affiliated mayor, who was assaulted by a crowd of men. That's all they say. They don't describe who exactly did that or that it was politically motivated, even though that's essentially what, at least 1/3, if not more, of the report is supposed to be about. So they just, mention it passing, which is, this is just one example of the many people who experienced persecution and violence before the coup even took place. Before the coup year, people's homes were burned. It talks about the right to participate in the political process. Well, people were sent into exile because their families were being attacked. It was no longer a question of whether or not someone else could personally withstand the attacks and the persecution and the smears in the right-wing private media. It was the fact that people had to protect their elderly parents and their adult children or whoever else was being swept up into this when your house is on fire.
And the same. Can you talk a little bit about how this media represented the elections when they happened? And, the Washington Post claimed it was misrepresented it, then it kind of corrected itself, and then it misrepresented it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think we talk about media. I think I like to split it up into two, that being Bolivian media, mainstream media, and Western mainstream media. And the way that newspapers like the New York Times or the Washington Post normally get a lot of their Latin America reporting is often through dispatches from senior right-wing journalists in those countries. And people in the United States don't necessarily know those journalists, but they're presented as on the ground. They're
right.
Bolivian, Venezuelan reporter has told us. That's how this news is gathered in these US, UK outlets. And so I think the example of the Washington Post is important because they recently published an editorial. This wasn't an opinion piece, an editorial saying that what's taking place in Bolivia is political persecution, and they heavily cite a guy called Raúl Peñaranda, who's a senior right-wing journalist in the country. He's founder of a newspaper called Página 7, which is the most right-wing outlet in the country. This is an outlet that when the massacres happened in November 2019, last year in Bolivia, they said, crossfire between protesters and the police has resulted in some people, dying. That's how they framed it. It's a crossfire. The protesters came armed, and so the police did what they had to do. Those are the people they look to for dispatches, for reports, information, and those are the people that then fill, the columns of newspapers in the United States. So the information that gets delivered to the United States comes from a very, very specific class of society, of journalists, of political journalists. So, everything is seen through that filter. That's what we're trying to, build an alternative to. But yeah, you're absolutely right that, the Washington Post is a newspaper that last year published a study proving that there was no electoral fraud permitted under Evo Morales in 2019, but which in their editorial a few weeks ago said, well, there was no coup. Evo Morales committed electoral fraud and people protested, and that was that. So they manage information in a way that, is convenient and which pleases them. But I think the fact that it wasn't editorial saying this is incredibly serious. It's a position, it's a view,
right.
It's an opinion. And that's an opinion that's distributed and read around the United States. And for many people, it'll be the first thing they know or read about Bolivia, and in which is presented as, the current democratically elected government is presented as some sort of banana republic, tin pot dictatorship that's, just jailing its opponents on the basis of sort of grudges, without giving any other context. And this, when the cycle of information goes, the line of information goes, as I explained, upper class right-wing journalists in said country sends dispatch to the United States. That's presented as factual news. In that process, of course, the voices of ordinary people who were tortured, jailed, massacred, those are the voices that will never get through when
right.
that is the way that you collect the information. So, I hope people can be aware of that when they read stories about Latin America in mainstream newspapers of the United States and mainstream media outlets of the United States.
And also remember that being an actual, what did they say, like actual Venezuelan or actual Bolivian or actual Cuban, like there's not a monolith. There's just like there isn't in this country, right? Like people have politics, and especially.
I remember that. Yeah. I remember that. I think when Juan Guaido first declared himself president of Venezuela, there was like a viral hashtag on Twitter saying #Ask a Venezuelan.
Right.
And the point was like, oh, you think you're so left wing, but have you actually asked a Venezuelan? Right. Of course, the question is which Venezuelan.
Exactly. Right. Right. Ask yourself which Venezuelan, or ask them. Ask people saying, ask a Venezuelan, which Venezuelan.
Yes.
Here you are contrasting the way the Washington Post described according to Washington Post, this is not what a coup looks like. This is, in fact, constitutionally prescribed. And here's the image, right? This is from November 2019. Bolivian police refused to obey orders of the elected government and march in the streets alongside fascist paramilitary groups. So this is your democratic, constitutionally protected, very nice Christo-Fascist, demonstration, peaceful demonstration by police.
Yeah.
Here they are again. Nice weapons. This one doesn't have. It's like been removed or something.
Oh dear.
I'm
being censored.
Yeah, and then also you have some interesting images of. Yeah, you are. Why is that happening? I mean, why is that? But you have some interesting images of Añez, which is there's quite a bit of a discrepancy between what's being said. This is where she's being held.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's perfectly comfortable.
Yeah, probably not the palace she's used to. I hope they let her. Do they let her keep her Bible with her? It's so big, though. If she's really, now she's claiming that she's on a hunger strike, right? But that's also.
She did for a bit, but I think, that didn't last long.
But then you see pictures of her eating French fries and stuff, right? I think you.
Well, yeah. I mean,
then they
no,
said it was
she has
avocado.
visits. I mean, she has visit. They try to present this as, this is a poor woman that's been jailed. She's having her rights violated. I think a point that's been made by a lot of people is that she is enjoying the rights that she denied to the people that she jailed. She has the right to food, to shelter, to, not be tortured, to, maintain her physical integrity.
But she has many more rights than any prisoner in the or pre-trial detention detainee has ever had in the history of Bolivia. And this is exactly what the political prisoners of her regime have told us. They've told us that when they were arrested and in the months that followed, in the year that followed, there was no Catholic Church, there was no Episcopal Conference, there was no European Union,
Right.
There was no Luis Almagro and the OAS. Nobody came to speak to them. But not only that, the leftist media, the alternative grassroots media was afraid to go out and do their jobs because of the environment here in the country and all of the difficulties and all the tension, but largely also because of the attacks by Arturo Murillo, the interior minister. So people weren't even, the Defensoria, the Ombudsman's office, and human rights organizations were not even getting to them. So, I mean, it's quite the contrast between the two cases, between the way in which Añez and the small handful of people who have only now been put in pre-trial detention 4 months after the Luis Arce government came to power, during which the two most important ministers of her regime were able to escape to the United States. And unfortunately, seems like they won't be held to justice. This is just absolutely terrible that we allowed these people to leave in November. And so it's unbelievable that it's been made to be so difficult to make the case that, that these human rights violations took place during this period.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's, Ollie, you were kind of saying that this has a deterrent effect. But the other thing is, like, beyond that, I mean, if there's one place where, like, symbolic justice matters, it does matter at this level, right? If you want to condemn these human rights violations and you want to respect rule of law, I mean, it does act as a deterrent in ways that, I mean, I guess I'm saying this because I don't usually believe in incarceration. But when you're talking about an incredibly powerful person who herself had people jailed, oversaw massacres, these are some of the few times I think that it's very appropriate to put someone, to incarcerate someone. I know.
Yeah, of course. If there was no justice, how
Right.
would you feel if you had your life destroyed and then things just go on as normal?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, it's great. The masses return to government. There's democracy again in the country. That's brilliant. But what about what happened to me? That's
Right. Yeah.
worthless. What
Yeah.
you went through has meant nothing to anyone. That means.
Right, and
The
it's
only
it's-
reason why this process only began 4 months into Luis Arce's administration because people demanded it and they continued to clamor for justice.
Right,
Without
as they
that,
should,
this
yeah.
process wouldn't have begun at all, just like in the case of Venezuela.
Right. And it's not like, as you're saying, it's not like there was a rush to, they weren't like dragged from their homes and shot. They were
No.
given rights.
Yeah, I mean,
being denied.
the story of how Añez was actually captured is quite interesting because they went to her home in the city of Trinidad where she lives, and she wasn't there. You know, there was like 20, 30 police surrounding her home, and she wasn't there. And people started thinking, she's escaped, she's gone. And because the city she's from is actually quite near the border with Brazil. So everyone's thinking, that's it, she's fled, escaped justice. That's what that's what I assumed as well at the time. But after a number of hours, I think at like 2 or 3 in the morning, they announced that they had captured her and that she was at her friend's house in the same city, and she was hiding in one of those, one of those like lift up beds where you can have storage underneath.
Yeah.
She was hiding in one of those, and that's where she was found. I think I was actually asleep when she was captured. Camila was awake.
I was on like 24-hour watch waiting for it to happen. So I literally did not sleep that night or the next day, just watching her getting transported around, trying to figure out what was going to happen. But of course it happened on a Saturday night, so there was less press than there would normally be. Unfortunately, we were in, different parts of Cochabamba, but we didn't
So you couldn't celebrate together.
touch the action. But I mean,
It happened like 2 or 3 in the morning.
It happened at 1 in the morning.
1 in the morning.
Had it taken any longer, I would have attempted to fly to Benny myself.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some pictures of her. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Leslie, you have any questions? Or do viewers have questions?
So like it is kind of wild that as soon as the Biden administration takes over, they are taking these stands and they don't have to be accountable for the fact that this woman is like a Christian fascist, right? That they're trying to like there's no accountability for like what we like they're just basically using the same playbook that they would use with any country whatsoever. It's like, oh, the current government, we don't like them, so they're anti-democracy, never mind the fascist coup. And it just seems so brazen and just like, because anybody who knows anything, even casually follows this story, knows that it's bullshit, right? Like, so it just that brazenness from our own government to tell us one thing that we know it's not true.
Yeah, I think it also shows that there's a continuation between the Trump administration policy and the current one. I think specifically that statement by Antony Blinken shows that nothing has changed between the Trump administration and the Biden administration on the question of Latin America. That Trump Almagro line has remained, and I should remind that actually that Trump Almagro line represents a radicalization of what came before under the Obama administration. Obama certainly was no friend of Latin America. He certainly intervened, in a number of nefarious ways. But when Trump came to office, that radicalized in a really deep way. So, for example, the blockade, what began under Obama as economic sanctions on Venezuela, became a total blockade, dramatically worsening the economic situation within Venezuela. As well, the small easing of the embargo on Cuba was then clamped down again. Sorry, I should say, under Obama, there was a slight easing of the sanctions on Cuba. Then those were reapplied under Trump. So there was a real radicalization of the attacks on Latin America by the Trump government. But the Biden government, I think, is showing every sign that it's continuing that policy. It's a great shame.
Yeah, and of course Biden famously said, what was it? I couldn't say it any clearer to Haiti, do not come.
Oh, yeah.
Like they made a social media thing out of it. Like they thought it was appropriate to make an image of that to put on Twitter. And here's the Añez with her big, this is actually one of her smaller Bibles, right? but she has a one that's like 3 times as big, I think, that she like.
Yeah, when she first got into the presidential palace.
I mean, I gotta say, what a girl boss, I have to say.
I know, major girl boss. Even the color, right? It's like
the girl boss bargain, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, anything else that you want to tell people who are, don't get to be exposed to this kind of media about Biden's policies in Latin America? How you, whether you're surprised by the difference, by the continuation, whether it's a bigger difference than you thought. I mean, I know you were saying that it's a continuation, but is there a difference?
No, I mean, there's no difference. Like, it's not only a continuation, a radicalization, it's an intensification, and there's no sign yet that they would in any way ease the blockade on Cuba. And that was, obviously, if he came from Obamaville, then maybe he would subscribe to that. Is what people were saying, in the initial weeks of his administration. Fat chance. Obviously, the Cuban government and people have said that this feels like an intensification every day, because not only are they living under a tightened blockade, but now under the coronavirus, they've absolutely lost a lot of economic means because of the shutting down of the tourism industry, and how difficult it's been to get basic necessities into the country, basic food supplies, while also continuing to prevail over the blockade and innovate scientifically, medically, produce these 4 vaccine candidates, or 4.5 at this point. And but obviously this is they're going to have to continue to overcome the blockade, just like Venezuela, through cooperation with allies like Iran, China, Russia, Bolivia, in the case of Venezuela, Turkey, and but there's no sign that it'll be letting up, or that the policy will change in any way whatsoever. We will see an intensification. We are in the war against Nicaragua and its democratically elected government. The country holds elections later this year, and the United States will do anything necessary in this case to prevent the Sandinista government from remaining in power. And they will be installing their version of Juan Guaido if their other tactics don't work out.
Yeah, and Christian Hernandez asked, what can we do to help?
Well, I think even just discussing the issues in a way that goes against the mainstream media portrayal of things, that in itself, I think, is enormously helpful. Because part of the way that the United States, not just the United States, the European Union, the UK government, part of the reason that they feel they can intervene, seize control of natural resources in countries in Latin America, is partly because they think no one's going to talk about it, no one cares, and if people do talk about it, we can spin it in the right way so people accept it and see it as a good thing. So just putting those arguments and discussing these issues helps to break that down. So when you break down the narrative, the media discourse, then the hand of the state becomes a lot weaker to be able to intervene.
Absolutely, and that's exactly why the State Department and the CIA has invested in so many different programs to bring up young people and journalists to try to counter this growing section of anti-imperialist truth-telling journalism that's taking place with outlets like Brazil Wire, Venezuela Analysis, in the case of the U.S., Breakthrough News, and us, of course. And it's been very important. We're very few people, very under-resourced, and we work extremely hard, and we do things really just the DIY way in terms of everything we do. Everything takes longer. Everything is just crustier, and it's done off of a phone without great technology and without super video editors and stuff like that. But we're actually changing the story about what's going on our continent, in our countries, and they're trying to reverse that by putting more money into funding NGOs who will then go out and find these young people to try to fight back and continue to spread the U.S. State Department's message throughout the world. But we're actually, in a lot of ways, winning the war. And Bolivia was a perfect example of how a lot of people went from not knowing very much at all about Bolivia to, in a very short period of time, learning, what's going on here, the basics, and with that, connecting to what's going on in other countries, and the way in which U.S. imperialism works, and the way in which social movements here on the ground and the people can come together to combat imperialism and the neoliberals in their countries and protect their sovereignty.
Yeah, and I think that is incredible, like the kind of inequality in resources. I think not just on the issue of imperialism in Latin America, this of course applies right across the world, if you're in alternative media. But just yesterday it was revealed that in Bolivia, a number of senior right-wing journalists were receiving contracts for up to $4,000 to write a single report, taking 10 days, that was submitted to the regime about how to, improve their image, improve their propaganda. The resources that are flowing in to, to the narrative that we've been talking about, the narrative repeated by Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the resources going into that are enormous. There's foundations like the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, funneling tens of thousands of dollars to tiny, small outlets to launch this, campaign of, twisting, manipulating information. Whereas those who, do the opposite, do it without very, very little material resources, but it's done through, love and commitment to what you're doing. But yeah, it's incredible, really.
And people are asking who the president of Bolivia is. Can you tell people something about Arce and his relationship to Evo?
Yeah, he was Evo's economic minister.
He's called Luis Arce.
Oh yeah.
President Luis Arce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luis Lucho is his nickname. They call him Lucho here. Arce Catacora. He's a very good just manager, and he managed the economy very well, and that led to substantial growth. Yeah,
he speaks English. He studied economics in the UK actually, and then he came back to Bolivia, and he set up this sort of Marxist economist sort of study circle called Los Duendes, and that's how Evo Morales heard of him when Evo was elected in 2005. And in 2005, they didn't have many people at that time they didn't know what to do, like who to place in government. And everyone was like, oh, I heard about this guy who's into economics. Like, we should get him in to run the economy. And then out of that, they built the Bolivian economic model, which is based on nationalizing natural resources, but also strategic industries and manufacturing and transport, other stuff. And then using the profits from those industries to then invest in infrastructure, in schools, hospitals, just, poverty reduction. And that was the model drawn up by Luis Arce and Evo Morales. Luis Arce as the economy minister, and now he's the president. And I think it's just as well, because last year the economy completely collapsed under Jeanine Añez. She took out a $330 million IMF loan, indebted the country to a huge degree. Unemployment tripled. There was negative growth throughout the whole year. There was really just everything that had been built up over 14 years was completely destroyed. So now Luis Arce is back, sort of rebuilding some of that model. That economic model under Evo Morales delivered the highest rate of economic growth in South America for a number, I think 5 or 6 years before the coup. So it's a hugely successful model. Poverty was cut in half during that time under Evo Morales' government. So they're trying to rebuild that model. Just today, an example of what they're doing at the moment is that just today, there was actually Luis Arce officially reopened a state-owned glass factory. In a town called Sudañez in the center of the country. There's a huge factory that made glass bottles, glass for different things. and it was owned by the state. And they would sell the glass, and the profits of that go to the state, which then can be used on social programs. However, under the Añez government, they basically shut down most of these state industries. The factory gates were closed, so now they're reopening it and boosting that model. And I think the model is built because countries, I think if you're building a post-neoliberal, an anti-neoliberal economy, you can't just say that, we're going to tax the rich and just sort of spread that money around. Because that depends on a model of having a rich few and, people at the bottom dependent on the taxes from those rich people. And furthermore, in a country like Bolivia, where most people working in informal economy, it's very difficult to collect taxes. So that model of the primary revenue of the state should come from industries, profitable industries that are nationalized or created by the state and managed efficiently by the state. The idea that should be the primary way for a government to earn money, I think is incredibly important, and is the only way that Bolivia has been able to build roads, reduce poverty, build schools, hospitals. Bolivia before Evo Morales was a country of dirt roads, and now there's top quality infrastructure connecting most of the country. That's something that transforms people's lives, because it means that people can move out of small rural villages, they can sell their goods in larger cities, come back, bring that money to their communities. It means that you can transport medical supplies. It transforms a country, and that's only possible thanks to the nationalization of profitable industries and using those profits as government revenue.
And I also wanted to say that, going back to who is Luis Arce, a lot of people in the media, and this will continue to be like a line that's thrown into every mainstream media article, they're going to continue to say that Luis Arce is someone who was handpicked by Evo Morales and is someone who is a puppet of Evo Morales. But if you look at the people he has around him, he has a completely different set of people, a lot of whom are young, all of whom are extremely markedly progressive. And this is very important in a country in Latin America. In Latin America, across the political spectrum, it's extremely difficult to push for a number of progressive issues, including LGBTQ rights, including feminism, including women's right to free and safe abortion provided by the public health system. There's a number of these issues that are just very difficult in the most progressive of leftist governments, including in Venezuela, Nicaragua, El Salvador in the past, and in Cuba. There has been a lot of debate. And at the end of the day, the reason why these things are very slow to come is because the working class, the vast amount of people in the country find it very difficult to support some of these progressive laws. It's very difficult to entertain these conversations and discussions, and it has to come from young people. And this is a government under which those things can happen. This is extremely it's very optimistic for people in this country who who have clamored for all sorts of rights that wouldn't be possible in the past. We're able to have this discussion now. So in terms of being continuing on the trajectory of the Evo Morales government in terms of like the management of the economy, absolutely. But in terms of social issues, there's a lot of potential under this government.
Right. All right.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting issue. The point that Camila raised, actually, because it is quite hard to talk about things like LGBT issues or feminism, across the whole of Latin America, including on the left. And I just remembered in Evo Morales' government, they passed a law that allowed trans people to change their gender on official documents on their citizens' ID. And when Evo Morales himself was asked about this in the media, he said it was other people that pushed this. To be honest, I don't really understand the issue. I haven't really heard of the issue. It hasn't been a thing where I'm from in my sort of rural background. But other people made the argument for it, and I kind of thought about it and thought it was a good idea. I may not understand it fully, and I think that's the sort of attitude that is, most common on the Latin American left, especially the Latin American left that comes from the working class and isn't, sort of university middle class section. So it does need like certain people with the will to push these things, because it's not going to come naturally.
And that's to the detriment of the people who are plotting in Washington. These NGOs and groups who just think that they can just come and abduct some young people and train them to go be fake feminists and fake environmentalists, or liberal neoliberal environmentalists, are going to be quite shocked when they figure out who the people are who are advising Luis Arce. When they find out that the most important, closest advisor to the president is one of the top feminists in this country, I mean, they're going to have nowhere to go with that, to try to attack a leftist government by making arguments that leftists are machistas and whatever the hell else.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of that, right? There's this pretty racist, these people, they don't really know about this stuff. They've nice ideas. It's nice that they, care about economic issues, but they're they can't really, it's very infantilizing view.
Yeah, it's a process, these things.
Yeah. But it's not like it's perfect in, here. Look at the bills they just passed, right? In Arkansas. So it's not but it's like that Spaniard. I got to find that video of that. Sorry, I'm adjusting my light. I don't even know what I'm doing to it, though. That video of, was the Spaniard who was talking about how, the people of Bolivia, they're just not intellectual. They don't understand things.
Oh yeah, they don't have the capacity for sort of thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it is a very complicated issue. I remember I once interviewed a female union leader, a local female union leader, and she's an incredibly strong woman. We spoke about the issues of femicide, violence against women, etc., and her personal struggle to be allowed to participate in politics and stuff, and it was incredibly inspiring. But then when I asked her about abortion, she said, "Well, no, I've always been a Christian, and I've never really thought about these things, but my instinct is that I'm against it." But that was someone who's in the mass. But then there'll be other sections of the party, especially younger women, who do support LGBT issues, who do support the liberalization of abortion, for example. I should add that there was advances under Evo Morales on these issues. He instituted a law in which women on lower incomes, women who are studying, and a number of other cases, you're allowed to have an abortion legally. But there isn't yet a total legalization. But it's something that lots of people within the government are pushing for, certainly.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, any final words, and tell people where we can find out more about your work.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at Casashwa News, Casashwa News on Facebook. We now have a TikTok, which we literally just started. But do follow us there. Our TikTok will be specifically geared to our domestic national audience here.
It's all fun cultural
it's
stuff.
It's in Spanish, but yeah. But it's good for everyone. We have a lot of cool little things that aren't so newsy, so that's why we created that recently.
Cultural things, music and dance stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, we also have our YouTube. We're a little bit slow to upload some of our work. Sometimes they get tweeted, sometimes they get put on YouTube, but we're going to be a little more consistent going forward. One thing that we've been covering here, both for Casashwa News, but also for the radio here in Spanish and Quechua. We obviously don't report in Quechua, but we've been covering the municipal subnational elections, which is going to a second round on April 11th. And it's just really important because we really need to destroy the narrative that the MAS has lost support when it actually gained municipalities in this election. and it won 3 of the 5 elections that were won in the first round on the governor, on the departmental level. So we'll be chasing those elections this coming week. We're also following Ecuador's second round of the presidential election.
Peru's election, Chile's election, or referendum? Your election, yeah.
Yeah, but Ecuador's election is obviously really important to us and to the region. It's following, the same kind of template that they tried to use in Bolivia to try to get rid of the leftist candidate. They still haven't been able to get Arauz out of the race, and we have about a week and a half left remaining for that election. And so Arauz is leading, and Andres Arauz, who is the leftist candidate representing the Citizens Revolution, former President Rafael Correa, who governed for 10 years, uplifting Ecuador through socialistic policies, is running in first place according to all of the polls. But there have been significant efforts to try to get him out of the race, including through foreign meddling with the cooperation of the Colombian Attorney General to try to criminalize Andres Arauz and link him to guerrilla groups, and try to say that he's getting financing from the ELN. And so obviously completely baseless. They've also, they tried to use a third candidate to get him out of the race. That failed. And so it's going to be a really important election to keep our eyes on. Fortunately, Telesur and Casa News are not the only outlets covering this time. We have a lot of other great people. The Progressive International will be sending some election observers, and we'll be following that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want to stress that the upcoming elections in Ecuador are incredibly important, and we will be covering that. We both used to work in Ecuador, actually. That's where we met. And it's incredibly important because we could see the return of a left-wing government there, and that would add to the wave that has been in the past year of left-wing governments returning in Bolivia, in Argentina, left-wing government being elected in Mexico a couple of years ago. And it would show that the right-wing turn that happened a few years ago was a historical accident. And to paraphrase Martin Luther King, the arc of humanity is tending towards progress. I think that would be incredibly interesting, because I remember a few years ago, editorials in liberal newspapers in the United States talking about how the left-wing governments in Latin America have lost steam, have lost momentum. People have turned against it. I think what we're going to see in Ecuador and in the rest of the region is that moment a few years ago was a historical accident, a historical blip, and the path to development, to equality, is actually one much more rooted in reality.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Really quickly, just so I have a good clip for this, tell us when you were like, the people who think that they're going to send in young feminists and pseudo liberals are going to be very pleased or sorely disappointed when they learn about the feminists advising Arce. Can you just tell us a little bit about that figure?
About the figure.
Yeah.
It's the what's her title?
Either one of you can fill in.
She's the minister of the presidency.
Yeah.
And she became a friend of Camila and I during the campaign. She's Marianela Prada. She was actually Luis Arce's chief of staff when he was the economy minister. And she's an incredibly important feminist in the country. And
Yeah, I mean, from the day she stepped into office, she's used her platform to talk about femicide and violence against women. And the alarming rates here in Bolivia, just as alarming as the rates of femicide and violence against women in any country of Latin America. This is an issue that is embedded in our leftist, socialist, communist, Marxist-Leninist ideology, however people define themselves within the movement towards socialism. But it's by no means something to allow the right wing and the liberal feminists to attempt to co-opt, when really all they're doing is standing alongside Carlos Mesa and those who would like to see the country subverted to neoliberalism, which is inherently anti-woman, anti-working class, and against all of our rights as working people.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. All righty. And any narratives they should look out for in any elections? So like the narrative is what, that the left is weakening? Anything we should prepare to push back on?
There's so many narratives. If we're talking about the Ecuadorian presidential election, I mean, we have the losing third place candidate literally trying to tell us that Yaku Perez, who was the third place candidate in Ecuador's first round of the presidential election, which was held on February 7th. The second round will be this coming April 11th, so it's the Sunday after next. He's trying to say that if there was a recount conducted or another election, that Andres Arauz, that won with flying colors, would not have come in first. I mean, he's really just trying to rewrite what took place. They're trying to say that because Andres Arauz received 30-something% of the total valid votes during the first round, rather than declaring him the winner, because he won by 1 million votes compared to the runner-up. They're trying to count. The headline is how many people voted against him. They're saying that if all of the candidates and all of the parties and coalitions came together, that equals more than the votes that Andres Arauz and Rabascal received together. This is a bizarre headline.
That's a really annoying narrative.
Yeah.
They do that all the time. If someone wins with like 40%, 60% voted against them.
Yeah, it's like they did with Bernie, remember, Leslie? When they were like, he's not doing as well against Buttigieg, Biden, Warren, who else was in there at that point, as he was against Hillary, as he was last time. It's like, right, when he was running against one person.
Yeah, and I mean, then you could just say that the person accusing that, in this case, Yaku Perez, who got 19% of the vote, then we could say, well, 80% of the country rejects you then.
Right, yeah.
It's such an annoying narrative.
The international community needs to know that people who have followed Bolivia and have followed recent events in Latin America can now decipher, we all, our audience, everyone can decipher and see these elections, what's taking place for what it is. And people are able to see what's taking place in Ecuador without being fooled by the big private media in their own countries and internationally. People know exactly what's happening. And it's important for people to know that Guillermo Lasso, the millionaire banker who has tax havens, offshore accounts, and owns millions of dollars in properties in Florida under all sorts of shell companies, and who was responsible for destroying people's lives through the feriado bancario in Ecuador, which, anyways, this is a very unpopular candidate. He lost in the previous election. This is his third time running for president, and he's going to lose again. There's absolutely no poll except the polls that his allies fund that have shown anything different. So this is a very difficult situation for them because they have this neoliberal candidate who has tried to, in recent weeks, present himself as an environmentalist, as a social democrat, even though everybody knows he's a very strong right-wing figure in the country. All of a sudden he cares about women's rights. All of a sudden he's wearing different clothes in, promos, trying to pretend to be down with the kids. It's just very bizarre. So there's absolutely no chance that they could win in a transparent and fair election that isn't rigged. But unfortunately, there have been attempts by the electoral authorities, handpicked by the Lenin Moreno regime themselves, to try to rig these elections. So it's very important that we closely monitor these elections as reporters, as the international community, as Latin Americans, etc. This is, like Ollie said, a very important election for the left and for our entire continent.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much, Ollie Vargas and Camila Escalante, and we will see you guys next time. Definitely come back and follow their work, and we'll link to you. We already did link to you in the YouTube description.
Thanks for having us. Comments again, and nice meeting you. Leslie Lee.
Nice
Sorry,
meeting you
I forgot
too.
your name, but thanks, Katie.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. All righty. That was great, huh?
Yes, absolutely amazing. Great information there. Audience
Great
seems to love it.
information there. Yeah.
That you can't get anywhere else.
You can. You know what? Now that you know what, I'm gonna just tell people you gotta share and like and subscribe, and all that takes no money, right? Share, like, and subscribe. You can do that. Okay. But you know what else you can do? You don't have to do this because again, we are providing this for everyone. How's my light? Let's see. I think I messed it up. How is it? Is it? Oh, way a little too light. I don't know what happened. I was trying to shift because it became darker out. Crap. This is where I should like fade out the non. This is where the non-Patreon should end right here. But if you want, guys, I gotta say, yeah, these conversations are good to have, right? They're great to have. Okay. If you want to support this show, you know, it would be great. And because we're not even done, we're going to have another guest on. Very excited. But also, you know what's cool? If you do support the show, you won't be the only ones. You know why? Leslie, do you know why?
You got a bunch of Patreon.
I got some. I don't want to get cocky. I don't want to discourage people, but I do want to thank some of the people who just now joined the Patreon. And I'm going to tell you who they are. You ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. We got Charles W. W as in, what would I do without you, Charles? Right. All right. I got Franz VK, as in Franz Ferdinand. Very influential person.
Yes.
In history.
Incredibly so.
Incredibly so. Most famous for supporting the Katie Halper Show on Patreon. So thank you, Charles, and thank you, Franz. Shalini V. Thank you for that victory that you've bestowed upon us. Brent A. Brent. A Brent of fresh air. Am I right? Okay. I mean, I feel like people could become like $25 a month just so I could give them these great off-the-cuff improvised, soliloquies. Let's see. Okay, I need someone to stop moving that. Okay, sorry. It sounds like I have an imaginary friend, but it's not that. Someone else is controlling the laptop sometimes. Everyone say hi to Maria and Brad and Nick, by the way. And say thank you to everyone. And thank Leslie for his time. Okay. Amrita M. Amrita Glad. That doesn't really work at all. But Amrita M. I'm really thankful. Sorry, I'll do better. Then Cutest H. That is the cutest. That is the cutest support Patreon I've seen. It's the top. That's at least among the top
Cutest names you've seen.
Top 10 cutest names I've seen. Because you know what else is really cutest? Shane L. I want to thank Shane L for giving also. Shane L support. Don't take the L, guys. Give the... Doesn't make any sense. Shane L. L is for love. Shane is for lovers. Of the Katie Halper Show? Doesn't really work. Let's see. What else do we got? Vincent. That's just a great name. So I want to thank you for giving, and I want to congratulate you for having that name. Vincent. It's a great name. It has no price. There's no price on that name, Vincent. Price. Okay. I got a very good, important message. Thank you. Ocean Transistor says, as an early subscriber, my name was never read. Well, you know what? That changes now, Ocean Transistor, because your name was just read. And thank you for the bread. Wow. You got this is like, I'm going to start a whole different Patreon for just my poetry career.
Your slam poetry career.
Yeah, my slam poetry, yeah. And then Menikmati. Menikmati. Okay. Man, Menikmati is a generous donor. Okay. I thought that it deserved more from you, Leslie. Okay. And then EMS. It's like an EMS. What does EMS stand for again?
Emergency medical services.
Okay. It is getting that Patreon support. It's like an EMS to the heart. It's like an EMS to the Katie Halper Show. So I want to thank you guys so much. And we're going to bring in our next guest in a few. Let me just make sure she's ready. And Leslie, what else do you want to talk about? Any good super chats you want to respond to?
Not seeing a ton of super chats.
Or just in life. Oh, I just saw one, didn't I? What was this?
Didn't see a super
Let's
chats.
see. Oh, well, Brian Frederick, thanks for the informative segment. Thank you, Brian. Really. Matthew McLean, thank you for that super sticker.
Hey,
very
I got
cute
a new
fox.
one here. Can you have Jackson Hinkle on the show? Brian
Don't know
Frederick
Jackson.
asked.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll think about it. Okay. So, yeah, guys, I really hope you like this show. And we're doing a little experimenting thing. So we probably will. I want to give the editor some flexibility. So that was our if you're not subscribers to the Patreon, then please meet us over on Patreon right now. If you're not watching, how do I do this? This is like time travel. I'm already so ADHD and I'm trying to do this. If you're not watching this live, sorry, because now you got to go to the Patreon to watch the rest of this. Is that good? And to do that, you just go to patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. But honestly, we're going to have Esperanza in the regular episode too. So that's a false alarm. At some point, though, I may say that again. And don't lose your stuff, everyone, because I just want to, I'm trying to walk that line between being, having a Patreon, but also making sure people, especially people who I haven't had on the show before, they got to be on the main feed also. Leslie, I mean, you're someone, Leslie, who I would have, and I wouldn't need to, because you're blowing up, honestly, so too much. You've blown up too much, but So I'm very excited to bring on End Classless Society, as she's known on Twitter. She's an organizer. She is an anti-imperialist, feminist, labor organizer, and she's with TwinkRev, very good Marxist LGBTQ magazine. Esperanza, welcome. Oops.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm good. Also, just want to say I'm also with the anti-imperialist feminist organization Affirm, which I always try to rep when I can.
Yeah, you can if you want to add it to your bio. I put it in the link, but I will put it in here. Right, it's AIF. It's AFI3.
AF3IRM.
AF3IRM. Okay, I'll just put that link. A transnational feminist organization. Okay, let's put that out there. I'll just put that in there. Cool. I mean, we could actually, we could start with that. Just talking about that. I could just do that. I could share that. But I wanted to have you on to talk about lots of different things, and it was a kind of perfect way to. It was a perfect segue because one of the things that Camila and Ollie mentioned, I don't know if you saw this part, but he mentioned it's a difficult, it's a complicated issue of like social justice and economic justice. And, he mentioned this a very strong woman, like with a strong personality who believes in women's rights. And then he brought up abortion and she was like, oh, no. And it is a kind of, I think there's like an uncomfortable discussion that people don't know how to have because class is such an issue. And I'm not even comfortable formulating the question. Like, how do we talk about it? So like Evo Morales, for instance, he said something about how like there were more gay men because chicken, I don't know if you remember this, but like years ago, he was like, oh, I think that we're seeing more gay men because there are more hormones in the chicken. And that's not like a take that I subscribe to, but I think he's great. And so like, how can we look at these things through that intersectional lens in a real way, not the way that people just throw around that word? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that I want to say is all of us are, complicated people. We're not all going to be right all the time. Those of us, even who are mostly right, are still going to be wrong, a lot of the time. Um, I also think that this sort of shows the importance of a proletarian party that is committed to ending all exploitation, being the one to democratically set the political line on different issues. That way, it's not sort of just left up to any one individual that can let their own subjective bias or other errors get in the way. But I do think that in terms of like Evo Morales and the question of socialism, class, and social justice, the reason why proletarian or working class consciousness is so important is because in order for the proletariat to liberate itself, it has to do away with all exploitation and oppression in society. And so that's why traditionally you've seen socialists, communists that have been the most progressive on mostly all of the social issues.
Yeah. And do you want to talk also about Affirm, which I just had? I'll bring it back up. And what kind of what is this orientation that you're talking about, where class proletariat for people who I think people in the audience, there's a range of people. Lots of people know what that word means. Lots of people don't. Lots of people have some idea. But can you give kind of an overview so that everyone's on the same page?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say proletariat, I mean working class. I mean those of us who have nothing to sell but our labor power. So unlike, the Jeff Bezos and, the people who maybe own business, we sell our labor every day for a wage, and that's what makes us, proletarian. Now, in terms of Affirm, we've been around since I believe 1989, so a couple years before I was born, and we are an anti-imperialist feminist organization. So initially, we started out as a solidarity network for the struggle in the Philippines, but we then sort of moved into addressing the issues here in the U.S., as well as with our chapters in Hawaii and Puerto Rico. And so for us, right, opposing imperialism means opposing U.S. intervention, militarization projects, but also opposing the sexual exploitation of women that always comes along with imperial projects.
And what are you working on now with Affirm and also with TwinkRev, which is great? Big fan of TwinkRev. But what are some of the projects that you guys are involved in right now?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with Affirm. One of the biggest things that we're working on right now are decriminalizing people in the sex trade, while also calling out the violence and exploitation that happens in it, and therefore, figuring out how we can both decriminalize people who do it to survive, while also ensuring that the market doesn't expand, and thus the coercion and violence inherent to it. And then in terms of TwinkRev, we are actually about to do a rebranding. As we started out sort of as a podcast with Sam and Gian, and then it turned into a magazine, and then we started growing. So I think right now we're in the process of rebranding, and we're going to be launching a new website, a new name, where we're hoping to, entertain a lot of critical pieces, and, some debates within the international left right now.
And what makes you you're a fellow, if I may say, everyone here, we're all Bernie bros. And what makes you like a communist, not a socialist? Because a lot of people are socialists. Some of us are from mixed families. But yeah, can you talk about what being a communist means today and what the relationship is between communists and socialists? Because I'm from a family where that split was big and very divisive. And then today people are like, are you kidding? Like as if like either one has any power. And and what is to be done about this? Like, are there fellow travelers, or who are our allies? You know, where does that begin, end, etc.? Really easy, concrete questions I've just thrown at you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this question is so important, especially now when socialism is becoming increasingly popular in the US. But I think it's really important to define these terms. So, traditionally, when you look at it, socialism is sort of the first stage of communism. Communism is a classless society. So it's a society that does not have class domination. It is free of capitalist exploitation, which what that means is, every day we go to work, let's say 8 hours of the day, we're producing like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of dollars for the company, but they take all that money from us. So in reality, we're maybe only working 2 or so hours for ourselves, and the rest of it we're working for free for the boss, for the capitalist. So a communist society would do away with that, right? Would do away with commodity production, which is producing something for its exchange value or how much it can be traded for on the market, and instead producing to meet people's needs, right? So I would say it's a much more sensible, rational way of organizing society that meets our needs and not simply the needs of a minority. Now, socialism is the transitionary phase to communism, because those of us who are not anarchists, we don't, believe that we could just sort of smash the state and do away with capitalist exploitation overnight. We need to have a sort of scientific approach to this that allows us to understand how we actually reach a society that has done away with exploitation and oppression.
I thought you said depression. You said oppression, but those are related too. That's a whole.
Oh, yeah. I mean, our society today produces all sorts of, problems with mental health. Not to say that there aren't some that are like based in biology or chemical imbalances, but if we're being honest, I mean, capitalist society, it alienates us, it isolates us, gaslights us on a major scale, like we're seeing right now under Biden.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what are your thoughts, by the way, on Trans Day of Visibility, and how that fits into kind of organizing, and how it fits into the kind of the progress and also new challenges, right? In now it's easy to just like stand like in solidarity, and Biden will say the right thing, right? And then also, like, he has said that he would, not sign any Medicare for All bill, that he veto any Medicare for All bill, right? That passed his desk. So, like, I guess the danger, the double-edged sword of increased, of progress, and also the danger of the weaponization of identity politics to not just take bad positions, but ironically take bad positions that are bad for the very populations and very groups and communities that one is claiming to champion.
Yeah, I think, maybe some people maybe resonate with the visibility message because they think that, trans people have sort of been, like hidden or, obscured in society. And so I understand why they do that. However,